Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I did something slightly different. I painted, first of all, on a very old canvas. I had covered this with a fine layer of gesso, but I didn't remember whether I'd painted in water mixable oils or acrylic. But I've had this canvas for 3 or 4 years. It has not peeled or cracked or is damaged in any way, so I feel it's safe to go over it with acrylic. You can paint over acrylic with oil, but you can't paint over oil with acrylic. I'm pretty sure this must be an acrylic painting that I've gessoed over, and I don't know why I did that because I think it's quite a nice painting. But anyway, I did, and so I'm using this old canvas, rather large. You may not see the whole picture. And I'm painting in the background here, and I'm using primary yellow, which is a slightly transparent paint. You can see the roses coming through it, but that doesn't matter at this stage. And I'm going to cover the painting in paint, and then I'm going to use white paint to make it opaque. As the paint mixes the blue with the yellow, it forms a green, and you get this sort of blended background of colours and different colours forming. And I like that look. I think it gives a nice, once you get the white paint over it, diluting it and making it opaque, you get a sort of lovely blended soft background, which I like for most of my paintings. Not all of them, but most of them. I'm using my usual palette of titanium white, primary yellow, raw sienna, raw umber, French ultramarine blue, sap green, and alizarin crimson. And I'm using a 3/4 inch flat to apply the white paint in a crisscross motion. For the next step, I use a powder brush that I get from the dollar store. They're nice, big, fluffy brushes, and they're perfect for blending. I use the same crisscross motion with the brush. It just blends out those harder strokes of the flat. When I'm painting flowers, I sometimes add leaf shapes into the background. Not all of them are visible in the final painting, but it just adds a little bit of background noise to the painting and fills the painting out a little bit. They're just odd-shaped leaves, whatever comes to mind. I'm using a small round and raw sienna to draw in the flower shapes, just to get my composition right. And I'm going to paint hydrangeas, roses, and delphiniums. Delphiniums are my newest favorite flower. I saw some photographs of those and I thought they were absolutely stunning. They're so soft and silky and fluttery looking, and very delicate looking flower. And they look great in a vase. These flowers are set in a vase, and I'll show you how I paint a vase at the same time. The raw sienna is a nice neutral. It blends in. I can, because it's acrylic, other colour paints over it well, and you don't see it in the final painting, but it does give me a good guideline. When you're painting glass, to make it look glassy, you need to see things through the glass, like the tabletop, and things are reflected in the glass, like the flowers that are in the vase. and light that hits the vase and goes through the vase and comes out the other side as reflected light. So the light that hits the vase is brighter than the light on the other side where you see it through the vase. And when I'm painting my hydrangeas, as I'm doing now, I usually put in a coat of paint first as the base, and then I paint my petals over the top of that using a filbert brush, which is a flat brush with a rounded top, and just painting on petal shapes. I don't try to do florets at this stage. I just dab petal shapes all over the shape of the flower. And then I go in afterwards and paint the florets. I usually paint 4 petals per floret. I don't know if hydrangeas come in any other way. The ones I've seen have all had 4-petaled florets. So that's the way I paint them. I put those swatches of colour on the vase because whatever is in the vase is reflected in the glass and makes the glass look more glassy. I start off painting this vase of flowers in pretty standard colours, my regular palette, and it turned out very nice, I thought, but very kind of bland. And then I remembered that I had a box of colours that were a little bit brighter, a little more lively, and that I rarely used. So I brought those out. And after I'd finished painting this painting, I went over it again using those tubes of paint and came up with something that was much more abstract, much more lively. And I liked it very much. I hope you like it too. Please feel free to leave a comment and tell me what you think. Because I liked it so much, I thought I might try this method of painting in the future, try a few others, just to see how they come out. It was interesting using those different, I don't know why I had those paints. They must have attracted me, otherwise I wouldn't have bought them, would I? And but they're much brighter, more fluorescent in colour, and I ended up with a very lively looking painting. I was really pleased with the outcome. I've got to say I don't show you much of that part of the painting. I think you just see a rose that I painted, and the video had got quite long at that point, and I wasn't confident of editing it, such a long video, into something that was doable on YouTube. So I cut it short, that part, but I will paint an entire painting using those colours one of these days, and you'll see how much more lively it makes a painting look. I don't know what they call it. I call it abstract. It's just not realism, which is what I usually paint. Any of you who have watched me paint before will know that I use 3 different shades. I use a mid-tone, which is generally the sort of not too light, not too dark color mix. And then I put on a shadow. And then at the very end, I put on a highlight. I usually mix yellow and white into whatever color is my mid-tone for my highlight. And sometimes, if it's the edge of a leaf or vase or rose petal, I use plain titanium white as my highlight, as my top highlight. That is a highlight on my highlight. And I find that works for me. It gives me a shape, a volume, I can't think of the word, but it makes things look rounded and gives substance to whatever it is I'm doing. And I'm happy with that style of painting. It's my style, I suppose. I also take breaks from my paintings. I have a cup of tea or I sit down and just look at my painting for a little while and see what it needs. I can't paint straight through, or rarely anyway do I paint standing and straight through. I usually take little breaks just to see what I want to do next. It's an easy way of painting. It's a more relaxed way of painting, I feel. And I don't go too far off the beaten track, I find, if I do it that way. If I take the time to just look at my painting and figure out my next step. I decided the light is coming from the right. It almost always is in my paintings. And so all the highlights will be on the right and all the shadows will be on the left. I try to keep it fairly simple and I don't change that very often. Rarely, in fact. Light is almost always coming from the right in every painting that I do. And I start off with a fairly good highlight or medium sort of shadow, and I will either lighten or darken as I go along. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm sitting there staring at my painting. Do I need to make this petal lighter? Do I need to make that leaf darker? Those are the sort of things I'm thinking when I'm watching my painting for a while before I move on. For the petal shapes, I'm using a filbert brush. I start off with a bristle brush. It's a flat brush with a rounded top, and it gives a really nice petal shape. Then I changed from the bristle to use a taklon brush, artificial brush, artificial bristle. I don't know if bristle's the word, but anyway, it's a man-made brush, not animal hair. And that ended up working well. I liked that best. And so I did all the petals using the taklon brush. I think it's a nylon or something. Anyway, a man-made fiber, whatever. As the white paint dries, it dulls down a little bit and then I lose my highlight. So I often reinforce that highlight 2 or 3 times just to keep it really bright. To put in the stamens at the center of the flower, I use Q-tips. And I start off with a dark color, usually raw sienna, or I might add alizarin to that depending on how I feel that day. And then I go in over the top of that with an orange. I make the orange of primary yellow and alizarin crimson. It's not very light orange, sort of a dark orange. And I dab that in over the top. For the hydrangeas, I don't put a center into every floret. I usually put 4 or 5 per flower, and I just don't do every single one. Otherwise it gets too busy and it distracts the eye. So I just do an odd number usually on each flower head. At this stage, I've more or less finished the painting. I'm just puttering around, dabbing a highlight here or shadow there. And it's really finished. But sometimes I have difficulty tearing myself away from a painting. I have to be very firm and tell myself the painting's done. You don't need to add anything extra. Leave it be, because you can overwork a painting if you're not careful. And then it loses its spontaneity, it loses its vibrancy somehow. So you have to be very careful and pull yourself away from the project when you get an inkling that it's finished. For the glass vase, I pull the brush stroke around the vase to give it that roundness, that quality of being a shiny, round surface. You can pull the brushstroke downwards first and then pull it around. You have to sort of mess with it until you figure out how it works for you. I'm sure it works differently for other people. But for me, I generally pull it round the vase in the direction of what would be the bowl of the vase. That's the best way I can describe it. That brief flash of red tube that you saw there is the color I'm going to paint the lowest rose. And I do put color on the other roses as well, and I add a variety of blues to the hydrangeas and the delphiniums. I changed the whole picture really, and it looks like a different painting when you see it at the end. But I really enjoyed doing that. I definitely am going to haul that pile of paints out of my cupboard and do some paintings using those colors. They're very vibrant, very rich, and they add a whole different look to my work. Well, I'm quite pleased with today's project. I really enjoyed painting that painting, and I hope you enjoyed it too. If you did, please try and find time to like and subscribe, because that helps the algorithm find my channel, and that's very helpful to me. And I want to say thank you to everyone who's already done that. I really appreciate your taking the time to help me in that way. And I'm not sure what I'm painting next time. I really don't know. I have to think about it, and I hope you'll join me for the next painting, and I'll see you maybe tomorrow. Bye for now.